Yeah, I wanted to, on my way home from the Capitol, it's the last time, I think, that we're going to be going to the Capitol this legislative session. And so I wanted to, I got a phone call from somebody in another state through our Open Carry Texas website, 83287 carry, and we get a lot of phone calls from around the country, from within the state, people wanting to know what the law is here in Texas, people asking us what's the law, I'm getting ready to go on this trip here, what's the law there. For example, a guy was on his way over to Georgia, and then he was going to be going up to somewhere up north, like Maine or Connecticut or something like that. But he wanted to know, they were going to stop in DC, and he wanted to make sure that what the laws were there in Maryland and DC as they went through there. And I don't know if you know this or not, but I had to call to confirm because I wasn't sure if I was reading the law correctly. But our nation's capital, the seat of this country, do you realize that if you don't have a DC license, which is nearly impossible to get anyway, and they have no reciprocity with any state, that if you do not have a DC license, you cannot transport, carry anything, any firearms, any handguns, rifles, nothing. And so just driving through DC, if you've got a gun in your car, even if there's no ammo in it, even if it's disassembled, if there's a gun in your car, you're committing a crime in DC. The seat of the federal government that's not supposed to be infringing on our right to keep and bear arms. Anyway, I got a phone call from a guy in New Mexico, and he's going to be coming to Texas, El Paso specifically, and his mother died, and they're going to be spreading his ashes. That's where she's from. Their family's from El Paso. And so he's like, what are the laws there? And where can I carry? Where can I not carry? That kind of thing. And found out he doesn't have a license to carry. And this was actually kind of a weird question for him, because when I asked him if he had a license, he's like, oh yeah, I got a New Mexico license. I said, a handgun license? He's like, well, no, my gun is registered. So I mean, that's the only license I have. And I was like, well, that's not a license. That's your gun registration. We don't have gun registration in Texas. So he has no license. So I'm sitting there telling him, because he's coming from a state where you don't need a license to open carry a firearm. And actually, you don't need a license to conceal carry either, as long as it's unloaded. Like, you can have the magazine in one pocket and your gun in a holster or whatever. And so I'm explaining to him, like, well, okay, here's what you can do without a license. In your vehicle, you're fine. But if you get out and you have to walk around, by Texas law, not by the Constitution. Constitution, you're good to go anyway. But by Texas law, which people will throw you in cages enforcing, whether it's constitutional or not, you have to have a license to carry a handgun the minute you get out of your car, unless you're going to your house. So I said, if you're in a hotel room, and he's not staying overnight, so there's no hotel, he's coming here, they're gonna have a short ceremony, and then he's driving back. He's wise, he's getting the hell out of Texas as quickly as possible, back to a state that recognizes his right to keep and bear arms. This is kind of depressing because the legislature is coming to an end on Monday. And all the gun bills that we're tracking that have a chance of passing or that are gonna pass have already either failed or passed. So we're done. There's nothing else. And tune into this channel on Tuesday or Wednesday. So Monday is the last day of the session. On Tuesday or Wednesday, we're going to do a roll-up, and we're going to sit down, probably do an hour podcast here, or an hour video, and we're going to let everybody know what changes there have been in law so far. And if it's a gun law, if it's a pro-gun law, Abbott's likely going to sign it. So we're not really too worried about vetoes at this point. It won't be that long of a video, don't worry. We didn't get much. But anyway, It's a very depressing phone call to sit there and tell someone from a state that neighbors our state, like every state that neighbors Texas, that doesn't require a license to carry a firearm. It's very depressing to tell them, well, when you come to our state, leave your freedom back home, because you don't have any here. Our legislature, our ballless, soulless, gutless, statist legislature, did absolutely nothing on constitutional carry this year. Instead, they did the exact opposite with the help of their friends in the Texas State Rifle Association and Alice Tripp. Decided to label and denigrate you and I, constitutional carry supporters, and lie about the bill, saying that it would allow criminals to carry. By the way, if you go to my CJ Grisham YouTube channel, I just posted a video where I put Bonin's staff on the spot, and I had a copy of HB 357 with me, and I demanded to know exactly where in the bill it says that criminals would be able to carry under 357, and you're not going to believe what you hear there. But anyway, I'm talking to this guy. I explained the law to him, and I said, well, look, there's also a provision in the law that while traveling, you're kind of exempt from that as well while traveling. And I guess you could make the argument that if you're just traveling down here and back, that you are still traveling. And so really anywhere you go while you're traveling, I mean, if you have to make because it would literally just be a stop to spread his ashes and then he's heading back, that the law does allow for you to carry without a license. The problem is, especially in El Paso, Texas law enforcement have no respect for your right to keep and bear arms. And if you do end up in jail, while I think there is a defense there isn't any specific case law, and you'd have to create it, and therefore it would, and your life would be hell for a little while. And of course, you'd be in jail for a couple days or a day, and that would put it behind. So what I ended up doing instead is I asked him, I was like, hey, do you own an AR-15 or anything like that? And he said, yeah. And I said, well, just carry that everywhere you go. Just carry your AR-15, which like boggled his mind. And it should boggle everyone's mind. How is it that I can carry an AR-15 without a license, but I can't carry a pistol, any pistol, no matter how small, a Derringer even? That I can't carry a little bitty pistol without a license? That I can carry my rifle into more places I can carry my pistol with a license? And I just thought that was a really depressing phone call. So that in the end, he was like, oh, cool, so I won't have any problems with my rifle. I'm like, well, I'm not going to say you're not going to have any problems, because again, cops here in Texas hate your right to keep and bear arms, and they hate our right to keep and bear arms. But for the most part, no, you're not. We've got them mostly educated about the fact that rifles are perfectly legal. So you'll have less problems carrying an AR-15 than you would openly carrying a handgun. So that's what he's going to do. But wanted to share that story. It's just one of the many phone calls that we get. And since there are 36 states that don't require a license to carry a firearm or a handgun, and we're one of only 14 states that do require a license to carry a handgun, almost all the calls we get should be very easy. Instead, I have to explain to people where they can and can't carry, how they can and can't carry, who can and can't carry, because we have some of the most jacked up licensing laws in the country. We're number 2 behind only California on the strict requirements for our license to carry. And by the way, when I talked to Speaker Bonin's staff about that, they didn't seem to care. They actually seemed to like the fact that we're right behind California. I should tell you something. It's sick and despicable that here in Texas, we are so far behind on gun rights. Absolutely so far behind on gun rights. But I'm driving home from Austin and wanted to talk about that phone call real quick. That it's just, I can leave the minute, listen to this. When you leave Texas and you head east on I-10, well, really on any highway that heads east for the most part, from here to the coast, or from the border, excuse me, from the border to the Atlantic coast, you don't need a license to carry a handgun. If you leave here and go north, all the way up to Canada, you don't need a license to carry a handgun. If you leave here and you head west all the way to California, you do not need a license to carry a handgun. Now reverse that. If you leave if you're driving from Florida to California, well, I guess except Florida, excuse me, except for Florida. So I guess you got to stay north of Florida. So if you're going from the coast of Georgia west, you don't need a license until you get to Texas, and then you got to have a license, except in your vehicle, of course. And so then you got to go through Texas, and then once you leave Texas and you continue heading west, you don't need a license until you get to California. Or if you go north of California to Oregon, you can go all the way to the Pacific Ocean. So you can go from the East Coast to the West Coast without a license as long as you don't go through Texas. That's how jacked up Texas is. Where's Governor Abbott? Where is Dan Patrick? Well, I know where Dan Patrick is. We didn't have a Senate bill. But where is Governor Abbott? We're going to have a special session, folks, and what I need y'all to do is y'all need to call, write, visit, do whatever you got to do, and demand a special session on the #1 Republican Party of Texas platform issue, constitutional carry, House Bill 357. Now, he's not going to do that because Greg Abbott doesn't like constitutional carry. It's not a priority for him. If it were a priority, he would have made it a priority. He would have made it an emergency item like all the other nonsense crap that he made priority items this session. Constitutional carry wasn't one of them. Dan Patrick did not make constitutional carry a priority item this session. Now, he almost has a pass in the sense that nobody filed one, but it still wasn't made a priority. And of course, we know where Bonin stands. But anyway, call Abbott, let him know that you want constitutional carry to be added to any special call, any special session that he calls. And I guarantee you there's going to be one, because not one of the top 5 Republican Party platform priorities were passed this year, and it's a majority Republican legislature. And I'll say something else, and this is going to shock some people. This session, with few exceptions, the Democrats were the ones that were coming out in support of pro-liberty amendments and bills, not the Republicans. Thanks to the Republicans, you now have to be, well, unless Abbott vetoes the bill, you now have to be 21 just to smoke a cigarette. So if you're not 21, all you 18 to 20-year-olds, I hope you're voting against Abbott if he signs that bill. All right, take care, guys. Be safe. Be free. Yeah, keep in mind exactly what was said there by Mr. I can't read that. Mr. Raz, reasonable, articulable suspicion. The Republicans are the ones that are responsible for killing gun rights legislation this session. The Republicans, not the Democrats, the Republicans killed constitutional carry. It's not that they did nothing, it's that they actively killed gun rights bills this session. All right, take care, be safe, be free.